Hey, it's Mike Hambright with Flipner.com. Welcome back for another exciting expert interview where I interview successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in our industry. If you haven't checked out the new Flipner.com yet, please go check it out, Flipner.com. We have a great platform that I know you're going to love. Today for the show, I'm joined by Roger Faulkner. He's the founder and CEO of RBD Ventures, a real estate investor and redevelopment company based out of San Diego. And after he left the Navy and a few other entrepreneurial ventures, he dove into real estate investing with no prior experience, just like a lot of folks I've had on the show. And since 2009 in Southern California has done over 200 deals, which is a lot for Southern California. We consider the size of the deals relative to markets like Texas or the Midwest. The key to success in any real estate investing business is leads and property acquisition, and that is Roger's specialty. So today he's going to discuss with us the importance of acquisitions in your business, how to identify or disqualify deals, and how to adjust with your lead sources as the market changes. Before we get started with Roger, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Flipner.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Roger, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you're here. So it's always interesting when I talk to California investors because, California is just a whole different world. Everybody thinks their market is unique, but California is very unique from that standpoint.
We're a different breed out here, is that what you're saying?
Prettier people, those types of things. No, but real estate investing, it's just bigger numbers. You might do less deals, but they're bigger deals, and you guys obviously have done a ton of deals. But the market's just so cyclical out there relative to other places, and it's just different, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a roller coaster. I mean, compared to some investors, like you just said, I dove into it in 2009, and I haven't seen several market cycles turn over yet. But I think in the 5 to 6 years I've been doing this, I've seen like 3 different cycles compressed in that time.
Yeah,
and it is. There's been a few waves and ripples to the market since I've been doing it.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to kind of learn more about. We talk about it once in a while, but a lot of folks that are newer or looking to get started, there's really never a whole lot of conversation about finding deals. I mean, that's obviously the lifeblood of every business. It's very obvious to you as I say that to you, I'm sure. But most of the kind of gurus or the training out there would lead you to believe that the biggest challenge is you just deciding that you want to be a real estate investor, and then you just go find deals and sell them to other people, and the rest is it's all
deals
easy.
Everywhere, right?
What's that?
There's just deals everywhere. They're just
of course there is. Yeah. But you and I know it's not like that.
I think a lot of gurus, when you look at their courses, they're all talking about the latest gimmick or the latest software, And I think it's just recently I've seen some guys really starting to promote like here's how you find deals. And maybe because REOs have went away or short sales have went away, maybe they are starting to tackle that. But it's usually where do you get money or where do you get this? And I've always said, and I found out really quick that if you can find deals, you'll find the money. You might have to beat some bushes or something, but you'll find that money if you got a deal.
Yeah, that is the linchpin of any successful real estate investing business is finding the deals.
Yep.
Yeah. And before we get started talking about acquisitions and stuff, why don't you tell us your background? Because I know you've done some interesting things, and I was telling you beforehand, it's funny that very few people that I've had on the show that have found great levels of success actually started in real estate investing. They usually came out of the military like you, or they were in a job they hated, or something, and there was something that happened that got them into it. But generally, people didn't start there. So tell us more about you.
Well, I kind of did all those things you said. I was in the military and I had a job afterwards that I hated. So
yeah,
I've done it all there. I was like we were talking before the show. I came out to California and San Diego in the Navy. And during my time in the Navy, I was able to see both coasts, and I traveled across the country a couple of times, and I decided I was going to set roots in San Diego afterwards. And this is when I got out of the Navy, it was 1992. So I've been here so for about 9 month hiatus where I did some fishing in Alaska, the whole time. So it's just a beautiful place, and this is a place I wanted to be, and set up shop. And it's not easy, there's the sunshine tax to live out here. So, setting up roots, I spent about 6 months, half living in my car before I found a job and was able to set some roots up here. So you got to be, dedicated. And I've seen over the years many people come out, think that they're just going to set up, and it's tough, because the price of real estate is one of the biggest factors.
Yeah,
rents are not cheap, and so the cost of living is more expensive. So yeah, but I was determined, so I stayed out here. Kind of fell by accident into the restaurant business after the Navy. It was just because I was sitting at a counter reading a book every day. The manager finally said, you're going to start working tomorrow. But, he knew my story that I got out of the Navy, and I was just kind of looking to set up roots. So he was a really nice guy. He just put me to work, and I started doing that. And eventually I started managing restaurants, but, just going to working 50, 60 hours a week for another person and punching their time clock. And when you're a manager, you get to count all the money. So you see you're making somebody else a lot of money. And so eventually I said, I got to figure out some entrepreneur stuff. So I tried 2 or 3 different little internet businesses. Nothing really caught on. I really caught their waves kind of incorrectly. I'd catch them on the downside of like when the internet was, businesses were crashing and stuff. So it wasn't until 2009, that real estate was at the bottom, I felt, and this was going to be a good place to ride that wave back up. And I just dove in with both feet and just learned everything I could and just got started. Picked up a couple partners when we started a company, and we started wholesaling at first, and then we started flipping. So, and the rest is pretty much what you covered there. We've done 200 deals.
You didn't have any real estate experience, investing experience prior to that, is that right?
That's correct. The very first house I bought was a wholesale deal. I walked into escrow with the paperwork. Says, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
I had a really nice escrow officer that's still my escrow officer to this day that walked me through the whole process. And she was, I'd found her through doing some homework. She's the only really, person out here, and I could find in San Diego at the time would do a double escrow for wholesale deals, because most escrow officers by this time were scared to death of them.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, as long as you got the money, so one escrow's outside, one side is inside, I'll do it all day long.
Okay.
And so she was around since the REO days in the 90s. And so she was very familiar. She said, every time there's a lot of REOs, there's double escrows going on.
Okay.
But that was my very first house.
Yeah, that's awesome. And talk about, so you did you have partners from the beginning?
When I started my education, no, but it was through networking that over the course of that first year that I picked up the partners.
Okay. And was that, talk about why that made sense? Was it that you had complementary skill sets, or was it just the comfort of doing it with somebody else? Or kind of talk about how that happened.
Maybe a little bit of both. I think the first partner I picked up was the B, because initially RBD stood for the 3 founding partners, right? And so he was doing ads on Craigslist, just like I was for wholesaling, looking to build his buyers list and do deals and stuff. So I just reached out to him because I hadn't talked to anybody at that point that was actively doing anything.
Yeah.
I went to the investment club, but I was scared to death to talk to anybody until I actually did a deal. And so I reached out to him. We met for coffee, and we started talking about it, and he was just getting going like I was. Hadn't even done his first deal yet either. But he had tools I didn't have. He had MLS access, and he still had a 9-to-5 job, but he was, so it made sense that, we were going to partner up on some deals. I could, run out in the daytime. I had free days.
Right.
And if I found a deal because of his MLS access, then we would, split the wholesale fee.
Yeah.
Before we even did the first deal, then, by networking, I ran into the third partner at the time, Dustin. He was the contractor. So he had the skill set that neither one of us had at that point too. So once we started getting together, we did the first wholesale deal, and it was just obvious that we're going to be rehabbers. We wanted to flip houses. And so having a contractor on the team just made a lot of sense at the time.
Sure.
So it's a little combination of both, having a partner to do it with, and, share the responsibilities, and people with other skill sets.
Yeah, maybe while we're kind of talking about this, before we get started talking about acquisitions and leads and stuff like that, maybe could you just take a minute and talk about, for folks that are out there, because I think a lot of, especially newer folks are, I think that there's always this, you're on the fence, like, well, if I bring on a partner, I have to split the deals, versus they can complement, other things. Just kind of maybe give a minute of advice and tips on, how to find why partners make sense, because you've been doing it for long enough now to where, it's clearly working. I'm sure you've had some ups and downs, but just
Sure.
maybe talk about why it makes sense and kind of what people should look for in terms of a partner.
Sure. I think I've probably been an expert. I'm an expert on partnerships at this point because I've done everything right and everything wrong on partnerships. The thing is it's the power of I forget what the rule is, where you one and one doesn't equal two, it equals three, right? So when you start pairing up with other people, and then you can really get a lot more done faster. I mean, there was no way that we would have got off and running within 3 years doing 50 deals a year on the third year without having a partnership in place.
Yeah.
I couldn't have learned as much about contracting and working with contractors and what's behind walls if I didn't have a contractor partner on the team.
Right.
So it really accelerated my growth. Having no experience whatsoever, flipping house accelerated my growth, on that side now. 200 deals later, I can pretty much walk houses by myself unless it's really something serious. I know exactly what's going on in that house, but there's no way I could have accomplished as much as I did, as fast as I did without doing a partnership.
Sure.
On the flip side of that, and so when you say about splitting, funds and money, you should be doing more than triple what you could do by yourself. If you got two partners, or if you got two, or three partners and you got two, you should be able to do more than double.
Yeah.
And so that's why splitting it would make sense. And vice versa. Partnership is I call it like a mini marriage, and so you got to kind of date your partners and figure out if they got the same goals and vision. And we actually did lose a partner last year because he decided that the direction the company was going was in his direction, and so he decided to branch off on his own, and it's understandable. I guess it's like any relationship,
Yep.
So but the biggest thing, if you were looking for tips, for a partnership, is just when you sit down and make sure you got the same goals. If you got the same goals and you're willing to share the workload, partnerships will work out really well. You'll get a lot accomplished.
Yeah. That's great. So on to kind of acquisitions and the importance of finding leads and generating leads, and I think it's when you're an actual real estate investor and you've been in this for a while, you understand the importance of that role in your business because you don't have a business without it. And
Right.
I think there's also some people that got that, but if they were focused really heavily on one lead source, like whether it was REOs or short sales or something like that, they eventually found out that they needed to have more than one lead source because those sources dry up over time. But kind of tell us in terms of how you guys look at the acquisitions role in your company, and really just how critical of a part that is to any real estate investor's business.
Sure. Well, I'm obviously very biased about it because when we first started the business and we divvied up the workload, acquisitions was my main job in the company, is bring the deals in, and being able to analyze them really quick and submit multiple offers and all that was all like
Yep.
my forte in the business, and something that I really grasped it really quick, and then I really enjoyed it. Even to this day, if a deal comes across my desk, I have no problem jumping on the MLS and analyzing it really quick, because to me it's always like that fun of chasing the next deal
Yep.
to see if you get one or not, and really you're almost kind of let down every time you don't have a deal. Like, oh man, I wanted it to be a deal, but okay, you move on. But I never get bored with that, just because it's to me it's always been a fun thing to chase.
Sure.
The chase of finding one and then getting it locked down, and when you
Right.
get them locked down, it's always exciting. Oh, I got another one under contract, right?
Yep.
So I'm very biased on that side, but I've always said it, even though I'm biased, that we don't have a business unless you have acquisitions, right? You can't do good rehabs, or you can't mess up a rehab, or you can't worry about selling too quick or too slow if you don't have a deal.
Yeah.
So it all starts with that deal. And so, to be able to spot, what deals are, how to get the deals under contract, makes the whole business flow. And so I think it's the critical element of your business. And the thing is, like I said earlier, if you find a deal, you're going to find money to flip it. And if you don't find money to flip it, you're going to be able to wholesale it. I mean, so you got to know is like two guys in your market. One guy that does the low end, another guy does the high end, and you can wholesale all day long. You need a buyer's list of 100 people. That was one of the misconceptions when I started. Everybody, all the gurus said, get a buyer's list of 100 people. You shoot up the list and everything. I'm like, you need probably 3 or 4 guys. And they'll buy all the deals. If you find the right 3 or 4 guys in your market, you can wholesale all day long. So that being said, if you have a deal, there's always something to do with it. There's something money to be made. But if you can't find the deals, then obviously you're stuck.
Yeah, and kind of inherent inside of the word deal is a good deal. Like it's something that you can sell to somebody else. It's something that you can make money on. Talk a little bit about maybe how you. I'm sure that early on you were either ultra conservative in terms of, what it would cost to rehab a house, kind of identifying what a deal was, or you were sloppy. I'm guessing people kind of either go to one end or the other. They don't really know what they don't know, and they kind of undervalue the repairs, and or they're ultra conservative, and it ends up being a lot less to repair than what they thought. The conservative nature took over. But kind of talk about how you started and then how you guys evolved.
Sure, I probably flip-flop back and forth from one extreme to the other at any given time, to be too conservative to too aggressive.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with our business, we started out, we were, nobody in real estate. We hadn't, before we did our first deal at the Investors Clubs, I have to tell everybody, I've already wholesale deals, So I knew right away, intuitively, that a track record was something we had to establish. So I was pretty aggressive early on, to even made my partners quite nervous in some of the deals I would buy. And they really didn't put any kind of veto power in place to stop me. So I was pretty much given a free hand to buy whatever I thought I could make money on. And there were just some deals that we did, and I just knew, listen, we're not going to lose money. We might be kind of risking how much money we're going to make. We might do a lot of work, and we walked away with a lot of escrows with like $4,000 or $5,000 checks because we're hyper aggressive, and we'd find extra repairs that need to be done. Luckily, in 2010, when we really started flipping, repairs were cheaper then. In the last 5 years, I'm sure you've noticed in your business, the cost of the materials and the cost of labor have dramatically increased. I would say at least 25%, if not more.
Yeah. But there's no inflation, they tell us, though.
Yeah, there's no inflation. It's just it's just a devaluing dollar, but no inflation.
Yeah.
But a lot of it I attribute to gas prices when they were just screaming up, and once of course gas prices come down, the material pricing can come back down, and they're just raking in those profits, right?
Yeah.
And so materials have increased, labor, and now with new building going on, your labor pool is getting pulled by the new builders too. So they're not going to do as cheap as they used to do. So we were, back then it was a good timing. The MLS deals hadn't got quite squeezed to profit. They were less than they were from the guys that started in 2002, 2008, and 2009, but there was still money there. And then the material and labor wasn't so bad. There was plenty of labor, plenty of cheap labor around. So I was able to get away with being aggressive on repairs, making mistakes on that side. And I did have a contractor on my team that kept me from making really big mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my safety guard there.
That's good, yeah.
But as far as ARVs and pushing how much money we're going to make, I did it quite a bit because of the track record. After we started getting comfortable that we were a track record, established a name, I probably eased off. And even one year, 2013, when the market was screaming up, I just refused to go into the market hype. And it hurt me in the first part of the year because I didn't do deals as many as other people did. But a lot of people got wiped out at the end of the year when the market flattened out and actually came down some.
Yeah.
It's a give and take, But by that time, I started getting a little more conservative on the deals I did.
Yeah, it's tough. Every investor faces this period where you feel like, well, if you start to convince yourself, I have to pay more to keep up, then you almost certainly won't hit home runs anymore. It's just the psychology of, if you convince yourself that that's what you have to do, then you're going to do, you're going to, by definition, you're doing thinner deals. And if you convince yourself, I have to stick to my fundamentals and buy deep, you probably will miss out on some deals. Of course, when you get them, they're a lot more profitable. Right. There's a balance there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Finding that balance, and I think I'm still, after 5 or 6 years, I'm still struggling with finding that balance. And the thing is,
it's a moving target.
It's a moving target, and you get right now. Right now, the inventory is low again in my local market as far as MLS deals. It's low, and it's the selling season, right? So everybody's out there buying right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's investors overpaying. That's why I'm doing less deals in the last couple of months than I did. November, December, I killed it. I bought a lot of property.
Yeah.
Because the market's slow, nobody wanted to buy, but it's perfect timing for me because I'm selling all those deals now. But again, if I'm not buying, even when it's tight right now, I'm going to feel that pinch again a couple months down the road, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah, it's a curse especially if I know that I know it's hard to buy rental properties in California to make them cash flow and have them make sense. I think a lot of real estate investors that have built up rental portfolios and things, over time they realize that they have at least another source of revenue. If you're a wholesaler or a rehabber, you've always got to keep that machine going. Otherwise, you can't eat tomorrow, right? So it causes challenges for sure.
Yeah, you're only as good as your last deal here when you're doing just flipping, right?
That's right. Well, so talk a little bit about how to identify deals and maybe some of the mistakes you made early on, some things you kind of learned over time, and some things to look out for as well.
The biggest thing obviously is being able to evaluate a property and really nail that ARV. I've had whether it's wholesalers or acquisition guys I've hired, and let's say they'll come in and say, hey, Roger, this one, ERV is 300 to 325 or 400 to 425. Whether I say, well, which is it? Is it 400 or is it 425? I mean, I don't allow any range. It's got to be a number. I don't care. If you got to go with the 400 number, you got to go with it. But if it's 415, tell me it's 415. And so just not allowing yourself, ambiguity there. Just what is that number? What's that number? And to make sure it's solid.
Right.
And the best way to do that is just to get apples comparisons. I always say, is you got to find a renovated property. And it's got to be in the proximity, and it's got to be very similar square footage. That's your comps. You need 2 or 3 of those really to feel good. And I always look at it from an appraiser standpoint. When we first started the business, I met every appraiser at a property when we sold them, and just really quizzed them and what they were looking for and what they were giving us value for. And so now, when I'm signing off on a property or even looking at myself, I'm always thinking, okay, is he going to give us credit for this? Is he, or they're going to ding us for that?
Right.
Try to think like an appraiser, because most of the time you're stuck with that appraisal. You might get somebody that has some extra cash and bridge the gap from the appraisal to what the price that they would have offered on. But most of the time you get stuck, and we got hit 2 weeks ago, $30,000 less on an appraisal from what somebody was willing to pay, and we got them to bridge half of it. Luckily, so we didn't lose the $30,000. We lost 15 possible profit.
Yeah.
You had to move on.
But if it's FHA though, you're stuck with it.
Yeah,
generally.
for at least 6 months, right?
Yep.
And so with just being able to identify that number is key. That everything else flows from that. You'll figure out repairs, and you might miss it by $5,000, or you might find something behind a wall. But if you nail that ARV and you got you're pretty good on your repair budget, you're going to make some money. If you get hit with some extra repairs, you're less profit. As long as it's nothing critical, like you found a foundation issue or mold or something that really killed the deal. And most of the time with the numbers we're dealing out here, there's nothing going to be, it's going to kill your profit. It's not going to make you lose money on the rehab.
Yeah.
Unless you just really, like I said, just didn't even do a walkthrough and figured out, a budget.
Sure. So in terms of things that you've kind of learned over the years, what are some things that are kind of, rookie mistakes or mistakes that people, discounted from being as big of an issue as it might be?
Gosh, how much time do we have for this interview? I think
a week. We can stay here all week.
Not being a realtor, not having a background in real estate, I've made several of them. I've done everything from you're buying something with the wrong square footage, the tax, people, here's the biggest one in California. I don't know how it's in your market, but realtors always say, the tax records say 1,700 square feet. Well, it might, they added 300 square feet, and, the tax records were more than happy to tax it, for the tax collector, but they didn't get it permitted. So you're buying unpermitted square footage. So if you're not careful, you're getting that, and you'll get an overzealous, appraiser sometimes, or even an underwriter when you're selling the property that'll spot some variation, between what's the house size and what's permitted and not. So it's happened to us. We've been caught, that way, buying unpermitted square footage. I bought really big, loud dogs next door that scared all the families that had kids, so nobody would do it. I bought in the first-time buyer market, I bought the house with a huge deck that was 20 feet above the ground, that nobody would buy it because they're afraid their kids are going to fall off the deck.
Yeah.
And I bought the house with a junkyard next door. Just that neighbor, he just looked like Sanford and Sons, and you look over the fence and you're like, oh man, they got an eyesore. Yeah. And so these are all things that you need to obviously if you're a beginner, you need to write down and be very aware of. And there's a price of those houses too. Or there's a buyer. I say there's always a buyer for every house, but you're starting to limit your buyer pool as you run into these issues. And I'm sure that
brings the price down. Yeah, I've had some issues. I'll tell you a couple of issues I had early on. Is we had a house where nice little old lady we bought the house from, went during the daytime, no issues, everything was fine. Well, we came back after we bought the house. We went back, and the neighbor had like 3 Rottweilers, and they kept 2 of them chained up in the front yard, which weren't there when we bought the house. Right. And they kept them there all the time. So when we went to sell the house, we're dealing with that. And the people were parked in the driveway. They lived in their car, basically. And we thought, eventually we realized they're drug dealers, in the front all the time. Cars would pull up, they'd come out and exchange something. Well, that's what we thought. And months went by, and it was scaring people away. They would come look at a house, and there's people hanging out there looking at them funny. Oh, and by the way, it was a shared driveway. So it was like a 1.5 driveway, so we were kind of sharing it with them.
Right.
Not good. It turned out that they were like bookies. They weren't, I don't think they were drug dealers. They were bookies, but still, just stuff like that. you just sometimes you don't know it's there, and then you come back and you find out it is.
That's a really good point. Is visiting at different hours because yeah, I've done the same thing. We bought the house and then after dark, like all the cars come through and are they dealing drugs? What are they doing? Or we have one, and just people's what they feel or see. All the local kids would hang out, and I don't know if they were gangbangers or not, but there would just be like a bunch of teenagers, and they look kind of rough. And so every night when people come look at the house, there's this whole, right across the street, there's like 15 guys just hanging out. Are they no good or no good? And we even try to go over there and say, hey guys, could you just not hang out here for a couple of weeks until we get this thing sold? And finally somebody bought the house, didn't really care. He's like, hey, I got a gun. Nobody's going to mess with me. He was a veteran. Again, finding that right buyer for the house, it just took extra time.
That's right.
But yeah, we made those mistakes too. Or we used to have one contractor that worked for us, quite a bit, and he was an ex-gang member. So if he saw any activity in the neighborhood, he would go over there and say, hey, tell him that Kiki said, stay away, I'm working on this project.
Flash some sort of sign that scares everybody away.
I guess he had street cred, he had some street cred. So he kept some trouble away from some of our houses.
Roger, are you saying you don't have street cred, my friend?
Well, actually, I get mistaken for a cop. Everywhere I go when I'm in the hood, people always call me officer. I walked out of 7-Eleven. I was breaking a new acquisition guy one time, and I was telling him about that. We walked out of the 7-Eleven, and somebody, hey, officer, how you doing? And I'm just dressed like I am right now. But, I just look like a cop to people in those areas.
Funny.
I think.
That's funny.
More than one time, people have called me officer when I've been in the hood areas, right?
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Any other things that people should look out for in terms of things that can decrease value that maybe you didn't kind of plan on?
There's some stuff that I made. The biggest mistake I've made in this business, actually, and it stemmed from being low in inventory and really trying to make a deal, like I think we were talking about before we even started interviewing, where you try to fit those square pegs in round holes. Is just buying too many of a new product in a new area, that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
And we did that when we went to we were buying up in Palm Desert area, and it really kind of wasn't my fault. But if I wouldn't have made the mistake number one to buying too many, I wouldn't have had mistake number two happen. So mistake number one obviously is buying several properties on one. It was one golf course area, but the reason the comps were there, and it looked like it was going to be a slam dunk and have some inventory. I said, all right, we'll do more than one. But then what happened is the HOA, they started changing the HOA rules, and just sales stopped overnight in that complex. And we just got cremated by these 4 properties on one golf course. We ended up losing money on all 4 of them, just to get rid of them finally after a year. And there's only a small window market up there that when people buy in the wintertime up there. So a new market, and then I bought too many properties in one area. So right now I learned from it. So we just did a 55+ community here in San Diego, and I had an opportunity to buy 2 like relatively close in that same community, and I only bought 1. I said I'm going to test the market, make sure that I know what I'm doing, and then we'll buy more in that market, right? And so we did. Right. We flipped it and we made money, and so now I know we can make money there. But I was shy. I wasn't going to buy 2. I took a chance on 1, but I wasn't going to take 2 because of my experience. Yeah. And so I think that's the hugest as far as like losing money. Lesson I learned. It's just, if you're in an area that you're learning about that area, be a little cautious, don't be aggressive. Yeah. Say, okay, I'm going to test this new market out. And then once I learn the ins and outs, I'll be more aggressive with that market.
Right. How about maybe
this one?
Maybe you could share your experience with having been through, you've been in the business for a little while, about, from an acquisition standpoint, the importance of where your leads come from and having kind of sources of where you buy your houses and kind of some of the lessons you've learned there.
Sure. I'm sure you're familiar with the book Who Moved My Cheese, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's pretty much, that's the story of acquisitions in the real estate over the last 6 years, and it's in the middle of changing for us right now in California. And I think I shared to you earlier that I even changing my business and retooling my business a little bit to do that. But when we first started, 2009, especially 2010, when we really got going, it was just huge REOs. I'm sure 2/3 of our deals were REOs at the time. And then you could just call one broker. He had multiple listings. You just go down the list and all his listings. Say, okay, what's going on with this property, that one. Can I make offers? And it was kind of easy. That was the reason why when we got up to doing 50+ deals a year, I was still the only acquisition guy, because it was kind of simple that way. It was either I'm calling an REO guy or some wholesaler's calling me with a deal. So I'm buying. I'm just checking out But as they evolved, it went into the short sales, and then still they're a little bit congregated because some agents were really good at doing short sale listings, so they'd have a pretty good inventory. But as we're moving into it now, as you know, I mean, short sales and REOs are a thing of the past almost, and so we're getting into a normal market. It's back to what the regular investors did before I started, which is death, divorce, taxes, right? Those are the signs of motivation versus REOs and short sales.
Yeah.
And so those leads, you got to do more digging. You got to do more work for them. You got to do more marketing for them. And so we're in the middle of retooling our business even to do more direct marketing at this point. Start sending out probate mailers and direct mailers to out-of-state owners, non-owner occupied properties, and then tired landlords and chasing our divorce leads. And so we're in the middle of retooling ourselves.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
In that process, do you wish you'd started that earlier? I mean, do you kind of look back and say we should have had more irons in the fire, or is it just something that you just have to be prepared to change when people move your cheese?
Both. I mean, I don't think you'd ever say, okay, this is the day. I know today is the day, and I'm going to start now, and so because 6 months from now, I'm not going to have the inventory I want. You have to be a very smart guy to figure that out, and some people do. But just the guys I know, they've talked about trying to time the market. When's it going to be at the bottom? When's it going to be at the top? And the smartest guys I've heard to say, listen, you never know when it's going to be at the bottom. You're never going to the top.
No way.
You just get started. And you'll work through it as you go through it. So I wouldn't mind it if I'd started 6 months ago, really digging into some more direct marketing. But we're here now, and we'll set it up correctly. And as we move forward, where the market goes, if we got, we've done the REO market, right? We've done the short sale market. Now we're going to do the other. And unless there's another market in my studies that I need to know about, I'll be able to cover all lead sources in the future, right?
Right. Yeah. You'll be better prepared next time around.
Be better prepared. And I tell people, like, if we have another crash, man, I'm really set up. I'm really going to make money next time.
Yeah.
Because I've been through this cycle. So if we ever go through a big crash again, it'll be painful during the crash, but when we come out of it, I'll be really, really well educated and ready to go.
Sure. Awesome. Well, Roger, we're about out of time here. Maybe you could just take a minute and kind of share, maybe summarize your thoughts on kind of the importance of acquisition, lead generation, and being able to identify deals and things like that for people that are listening that, might hear this and be able to benefit from it.
Sure. Again, to recap everything we talked about, to me, acquisition is the lifeblood of your business. If you're not, buying property, you're not going to be able to fix property. You're not going to be able to sell it. You're not going to be able to wholesale it. So it all starts with buying it. So being able to spot the deal, find your numbers and stick with your numbers. I don't know how many deals I've walked away where they said, just come up $1,000 more. And I said, no, that's the number. That's it. I can't go any further. And so being able to walk away, I turn more deals down than I do buy, obviously. I mean, when I first started buying, when I was really laser focused, by myself, and it was REOs, every 5 deals I made an offer, I would get one of them. That number now is probably right 10 to 15 offers for every deal we get. Yeah. But, it's 14 deals I'm saying no to, and I'll aggravate the couple acquisition guys that work for me when I'm shooting them down, but I'm shooting down deals because I know that there's potential there for losing money.
Sure.
And so sometimes I'll do deals where I know that I'm not going to lose money. I don't know how much I'm going to make, but I know I won't lose it. That's a solid deal as far as like somebody's going to buy that house.
Yeah.
And so if I can make 50,000, that's great. But if we walk away with 20, I'm not going to cry. And
right.
So yeah, just be willing to walk away from something.
That's important because I think a lot of real estate investors tend to fall in love with deals, the idea of doing a deal, and you start to convince yourself, well, maybe if I don't do this and we don't, and this happens, and so you get yourself into a lot of trouble.
We play that what if game a lot, don't we?
yeah. It's kind of comes with it. When you're in the opportunity business, it's hard to not think that way.
Right, and even we've had to back out of deals after you do our inspections and stuff sometimes, and it hurts. And the agents get mad at me if we've done it. It happens to every investor I know, and they get mad at you and say, "Oh, you're just trying to tie it up." And I'm like, "No, listen, I'm in the business of buying deals. I'm not in the business of tying stuff up and then canceling." Right. And so it hurts my feelings. It almost hurts my feelings. I have to let one go, but it's better that than losing money. Trust me.
Yep.
After you lost money, they say when the poker players, I don't know if you're a poker player, they say they can always tell you about their bad beats, their hands where they lost money. They have a hard time telling you about their big wins.
Yeah.
So I think real estate's like that too.
Absolutely.
I can tell you about my bad stories all day long. It's hard to remember the ones I made 100,000 on.
Yeah. Awesome, Roger. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for sharing your insights and your lessons, and I think there's some great tips in here for other people.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, my friend. Please stay in touch.
All right, we will do.
All right. Are you a member of flipnerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit flipnerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry. So get on over to flipnerd.com.